This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post, brought to you by the Fort Hall School of Government. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of September 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am DM. Let's take a look at today's headlines. The Star. BBI suggests major reforms, plans to avoid referendum. The Standard.
Yes.
I sent my child to her death. The Daily Nation, killing children.
Yeah.
Very tragic headlines from the Daily Nation and the Standard. The Star seems to be tone deaf today.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's super sad. And Uhuru Kenyatta says, and I heard him say the other day, he Kenya ilo upuzi iko. And I mean, I agree. How you build a school with chicken mesh to support concrete is beyond me. I have never seen those kind of shortcuts taken anywhere.
Yeah, this is the epitome of corruption kills.
Yes, it is corruption, and maybe I should reverse my positions on Uhuru fighting corruption.
Yeah.
I say, please go ahead, because if now children are being maimed, were being killed by careless, hungry, greedy, looking like societies.
Imagine,
it must be stopped.
I hope the people responsible pay and pay dearly.
And I guess that's the question. Yeah. Who is responsible? So on one hand, you can see the city council. Did they cut some corners as people were, applying for licenses and whatnot?
Absolutely.
Or do you blame the owner, the older owner of the building?
Yes.
Both probably.
You see, by the time a building is complete, there's a certificate given to the county government, issued by the county government, showing that this building was built above standard. Now, if this school was allowed to operate, right, by the county government of Nairobi and probably whatever authority, then those guys are also culpable of the crime.
Is this a new problem, though?
No,
in Kenya? It's not. How many times have we heard of condemned buildings that are still standing? You were saying this earlier. The buildings that have the huge X's on them, they're still operating. Maybe we should have extended Sunny's job from bringing down buildings on riparian land to all condemned buildings.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So as we look at the headlines, we have a three-part criteria that we use to analyze them for you. We ask, is the headline topical or is it speculative?
Yeah.
Is it repetitive or is it groundbreaking? And finally, is it thoughtful or lazy? I want to say that they are both thoughtful in this subject. They're also topical. This happened yesterday.
Agreed. I think
we'll put them on the packing bag. In fact, I don't think we should toss them today out of respect. The Star.
Yes.
BBI suggests major reforms, plans to avoid referendum.
And this is by Mandera Senator Yusuf Haji. He's the one who said this.
Yes. But I think what the Star has done, and I'm disappointed in this headline and the story attached to it, because it's just a report. There's no analysis attached to it.
Yes.
I think what they should have, this was an opportunity to lift the veil of ignorance of Kenyans.
So what's the context of this story?
Oh, yes. The context of this story is this. That the BBI, an informant in the BBI, has said that the BBI will not be proposing a referendum.
I thought that's what we were told, to expect a referendum.
They will not be proposing a referendum.
Yes.
However, they will. One of their proposals will be that the executive be expanded.
Yes. My belief is there is no way Raila Odinga, as a co-principal in the handshake team, cannot not want an executive premiership. He knows the game is over without him or without us changing the referendum.
And this is the thing that the Star should have explained.
Yes.
And given us as Kenyans the difference between the executive, what Raila would want, an executive prime minister, and what the BBI is saying they would propose, which is a non-executive prime minister. And this is why they don't have to do a referendum. They should have told us. Article 256 of the Constitution outlines or gives us the matters that are protected, that have to go to referendum should they be changed.
Yes.
The expansion of the executive is not one of them.
Absolutely.
So they can expand the executive just by parliamentary initiative. And this is what they're saying they will do.
Absolutely.
That is such an anticlimax. You're telling me the whole time that BBI was not for referendum, but just for one little change that they can do through.
However, this story is suspicious.
Yes.
The part of the analysis also should have been making projections saying maybe this is a smoke screen.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you think, too?
Let me tell you, I think there's a scheme. You see, Senator Haji is a member of Jubilee and very close to Uhuru Kenyatta. When he speaks, and the man is an old man, when he speaks, he has weight behind his voice. And I think there is a plot by someone to play someone.
Having said that, What gives us the winning cartoon? The winning headline,
I think that both these headlines are fantastic.
Yes.
Killing children, I send my child to her death. I think that they should both share the winning headline. And I think that for speculation and lack of analysis, we toss the star.
Yes.
So we move on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. And just like the headlines, we have a three-part criteria that we use to analyze them for you. We ask, is the cartoon humorous or is it dry?
Yes.
Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally,
yes,
is it effective or
just plain lazy? Gado is still missing in action.
Yes.
I don't know where he is. Guys, please write us a letter and tell us where you're at.
Yes.
So again,
are you saying you miss him?
I do miss Gado. I do.
Yes.
But maybe he's trying to find more inspiration because we have been berating him for the past couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
So again, we have Kaso.
We have Kaso. This is the standard.
Yes, and Kaso has drawn a very young-looking caricature of Tourism Minister Najib Balala, and he's running away from a fuming rhino, black rhino.
Scary one.
Yes, and the rhino is a parliamentary committee, and the caption here is he's telling the rhino, go to hell already.
Yeah. But the parliamentary committee, the rhino is also representative of the 11
rhinos.
Black
rhinos. Yes,
rhinos
exactly. So the parliamentary committee recommended that he should take full responsibility for those 11 rhinos that died while being transported.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, guys, I think they're right. You cannot have 11 elephants moving to Savo, where we have already been advised the climatic conditions in Savo are not conducive for these black rhinos, and yet in just one day you lose 11 rhinos. In another jurisdiction, this man would be home.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, he'll probably get away with it.
And what is it that he said that he can only answer to the president,
Yes.
not to the people or a committee?
Which has been aptly put here.
Yeah.
Go to hell already.
Yeah. I feel like this is such a shame. Honestly, I was reading some statistics about the black rhinos, and the world has done so much to ensure that the black rhino did not go extinct.
Absolutely.
Then Kenya, as one of the custodians of this animal, we kill 11 of them in a couple of days. It's so shameful. No wonder we have so many Muzungus who are running our wildlife services. We're not ready to do it.
Yeah, but for good reasons. I mean, us as Kenyans have so many problems. A black rhino is not one of them. And in fact, if they die nearby, you're like, where is it? So I can
exactly.
And maybe the reason he's still in office is because people in Mukuru might ask, black rhino, I have better things to think about.
It's true. All right. The star.
Oh man, Ozone has a worst caricature of Matiang'i. Worst.
Why?
Is it good because it's bad or bad because it's good?
Because he's drawn him looking skinny.
My goodness, wow.
Okay, what does it describe?
It's a caricature of Matiang'i throwing a picture tag of William Ruto, and it has a label Tanga Tanga. So I think this is the context of what happened on Sunday.
Yeah, yes, so it's a day late.
Aaron Cheriot, my senator,
and
started the pot.
Yes, and Cheriot tried to imply that Matiang'i just survived because of William Ruto's intervention. With regard to the Roraka Lands scandal.
This is the one moment that I would have really appreciated Ozone's captions.
Yes.
What are we saying?
I think he's playing with you.
Maybe.
Matiang'i is being flippant. He's saying that's not true. I have nothing to thank Ruto for. I think that's my interpretation of it.
Just toss it. We're wasting
but we need more
moments
to start the pot and expose people. Finally,
yes. There's a caricature of former President Daniel Arap Moi.
Beautiful shirt.
Beautiful shirt, and he got the shirt correct because it's the shirt he normally wears. But the stage is different. This is not Kabarak. This is Mau. And the trees have been cut, but the Fimbo ya Nyayo is the one that is there next to tree stumps. And the caption there is cut down one tree and plant two more in its place, because that is what Moi said when you are doing afforestation. He said when you cut down one tree, you grow two others in its place.
But now what he's telling us is that he's put two Fimbos in its place. In the place of a tree that is cut down.
Yes, because there are allegations that the Moi has land in the Mau, and therefore because the Mau has been cut down, the trees have been cut down, they've been replaced with Fimbo Yenyayo.
Yeah. I think that's a fantastic cartoon, and if I was to compare it with the one of the Standard, I would definitely choose Ndula's.
Absolutely.
Permission to trash?
Yes.
Trash.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What are we saying then?
The Daily Nation, Victor gives us our winning cartoon. And that's Victor Dua.
Yes.
So what is our final thought?
And now our final thought, inspired by a book entitled The Dictator's Shadow Life Under Augusto Pinochet by a man called Geraldo Munoz.
All right, his name is actually Munoz, but it's fine.
Munoz. So he's an ambassador to the UN.
Yes, he is, in fact, yeah.
Yes.
So yes, Dictator's Shadow Life Under Augusto Pinochet by Geraldo Munoz, written in 2008.
Yes.
So this book is a memoir of sorts.
Yes.
And it offers an overview of politics in Chile, but also the personal story of an individual, Munoz, who at the time of the coup d'etat in 73 was actually part of the president's, the former president Allende. Yes, Allende. Exactly. So just some context before we get into Pinochet's life. So Salvatore Allende was the first Marxist to be elected to a liberal democracy in 1970.
Okay.
However, the U.S. was concerned with Chile's socialism and the rise of nationalization. So, of course, this is in the context of the Cold War. Latin America, very close to America, they're afraid of communism taking over, and maybe it was an enemy, and maybe spreading into North America. So the U.S. sponsored several coups d'etats, which I found very interesting. But none of which succeeded. Until 1973, when Allende shot himself after an army coup d'etat that was led by Augusto Pinochet. So it is said. So what this book offers us is a question. Was Pinochet necessary? And could have the success that he was able to bring into the country, could it have happened without the violence and repression that was part of his regime? And so Pinochet, quite interestingly, was 59 years old when he became president. So his life, if you look at it, is quite mediocre. He was he wasn't good in school. He wasn't particularly successful at anything. And having spent most of his life slowly rising up through the ranks in the army, he eventually became the commander-in-chief. But in the book, Munoz tells us how Pinochet was taught to be mediocre. He said, don't be the best in class. Don't be number one because you'll get attention. But also don't be the last in class because you get left behind. Just kind of like stay somewhere in the middle. And that's the way that he dictated his life. He stayed average. And somehow he just slowly, through slog, managed to rise, to the top of the ranks. So by the time the seeds of revolution are sowing, Pinochet is a commander-in-chief in the army. But he's reluctantly pulled into the coup d'etat by the Navy, the Air Force, and the National Police Force.
Is this by his own report that he was reluctant?
So, no, what happens is, in his own biography, his autobiography, he says that he's the one who led the army and everybody to, have this coup d'etat. However, years later, the truth came out that, in fact, that he was reluctantly pushed into it. In fact, it was a few weeks before the coup d'etat that he was placed into the position as commander-in-chief. And it was a few days before the coup d'etat happened that the other army officials came and said, dude, my guy, there's a coup d'etat that's happening. Are you going to follow us? And he said, I guess I'm going to. However, once he was in power, very smartly, he pushed aside his fellow conspirators and executed his rivals.
So he wasn't mediocre after all.
Exactly. So you have this weird, shift and tide in his behavior. And this actually became a reflection of how he became a leader. So they said that over the course of him being the president, 30,000 people died, 3,000 went missing, and there's just lots of there's a lot of mixed emotions about what kind of a leader he was. So on one hand, you have the combination of his policies, which see him as an economic savior. But on the other hand, you see him as this killer who executed and tortured people unmercilessly.
Killing machine.
Exactly.
I'm finding, I was also not very good in school.
And look at you now.
Look at me now. I don't know that I'll end up being a dictator.
Oh, gosh.
But anyway, 1975. A man called Milton Friedman walks into Pinochet's office. We studied Milton Friedman when we were doing shock doctrine. You remember? And he has a 45-minute meeting with Augusto Pinochet. And Pinochet tells him, I want a proposal on how to restart this economy. And Milton Friedman goes back and he comes back with an 8-point proposal. At the heart of this proposal is privatization of Chile's national interests, all right? And he says tax cuts, less government spending, extreme government spending. From 1973, from the time he took power, Pinochet took power, to 1990, when he took power, Chile had 1,000% inflation. They had no cash reserves in their foreign reserves, right? But by 1990, do you know what Pinochet had accomplished? 40 GDP per capita in Chile had gone up by over 40%. All right, they had the lowest level of corruption. They had the lowest infant mortality rate. They had the lowest number of people living under the poverty line. In short, Chile was the beacon of hope and economic industry in South America. Now you ask me, let us trade. trade, killings on people, which I don't advocate for, or economic progression like Chile did.
Exactly.
I would rather be alive and not be killed in order to enjoy the economic prosperity.
I don't.
Does that answer your question?
I just asked it. It's rhetorical.
Well, I'm very skeptical of his contributions as a person to economic prosperity in Chile because, as you know, the coup was sponsored by the Americans.
Yes.
And it was also at a time when they were preaching the gospel of free markets. So it's no surprise that Milton Friedman went to his office and said that you need to privatize,
absolutely.
The state entities.
Yes.
So the question is then, could anybody else, and not Pinochet, have done the same thing without the brutality, without the disappearances, without the reign of terror?
When Allende, you spoke of Allende. Allende, by the time Pinochet was taking power, he had 45% approval ratings, which in Chile was high.
Yes, because he was democratically elected as well, although socialist.
However, the guy was running down an economy.
Yes.
And give it to Pinochet. He used socialist tactics to keep power, but he knew around him, around South America, there were bastions of communism around, and he knew the West would support him because he would get rid of our communism.
And one of the smartest things that he managed to do is that he knew that he didn't know enough. As we said, he was a mediocre guy, he was average.
Absolutely.
So what he made sure he did was he selected competent advisors. So he said Milton Friedman. And then there was also the Chicago Boys, who were a bunch of Chilean young men who'd gone to study in the US and had learned under Friedman about free market policies and whatnot. And so he followed their advice, even though he didn't necessarily understand what they were saying.
Oh, yes.
I'm so unconvinced about Pinochet. If the Americans could make the economy of Chile, could boom the economy, then
they could also bring it down as well.
They could also bring it down
Yes.
during Allende's time.
That is true.
And they had reason to, because they wanted to discredit him.
Absolutely.
In fact, there are accounts that say that, Chile is it's a long, thin country.
Yes.
So they get their commodities through truckers, by trucks.
Yes.
So just before the coup d'etat, trucks were paid in order not to supply things.
Yes.
So and that's what caused lack of food, and lack of transportation, and inflation and whatnot. In fact, somebody said an account. I don't know if it was in the book or in a documentary that I watched. The day after the coup d'etat, the supermarket was full of food. So is that organic or is that organized? So who are we giving it to?
No, it's definitely organized. But then if you ask the people...
it was clever. It made him...
So maybe we should look at Pinochet up against the criteria that we had spoken about yesterday.
Against Mao.
Absolutely. Glad you mentioned that.
So now do you want to reverse your position?
No, I am staunch in that position. So yesterday we talked about... We have a criteria, or rather a framework that we developed, and we based it or borrowed from Plato's Republic and the Law. And we said... We looked at these dictators against four things. And the first thing is ideology and conviction. Tujay has said that this guy was mediocre intellectually. And from a study of his regime, he did not have any ideological persuasions like Mao Zedong did.
Yes, absolutely.
Like Robert Mugabe did. He was up to the day of his death.
Like Gaddafi.
Like Gaddafi did. They were anti-imperialist, they were anti-neocolonialism.
Yes.
Nothing. Anything to M?
No, but let me tell you, the guy was clever. He was clever because he knew he could outsource help.
He was clever to the extent of propagating his own power, of getting into power.
Yes.
Okay, what about number two?
But not to the extent of helping his people. So the second thing is vision and ambition for the country. And we saw that Mao Zedong had solid plans for the country. This guy, Pinochet, came in with the Chicago Boys plan.
And also he picked up the revolution by mistake. He just so happened to be standing there when everyone else said, are we going?
In fact, he became commander-in-chief weeks before the coup d'etat. And then, fun fact, he also remained the commander-in-chief after he stopped being president for another 10 years. So the third thing that we said in our criteria was legacy. What legacy did he leave beyond economic prosperity? Because we are saying anybody, any clever clerk can contribute to the success of a country economically. But there are leaders or dictators that have contributed to cultural revolutions that to this day inform the strategy, the growth of countries and how other people see them. I think one of the things that we say Mao Zedong did when we talked about him yesterday is he gave the Chinese self-esteem, something that a lot of African countries do not have.
Yeah.
So up to this day, they dictate the terms against which they're going to, or the rules that they're going to engage with the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
These three things, I don't think he fulfills any of the criteria.
I agree.
Let me give you guys context. 1973 to 1975, period, 2 years, all right? Now this man sits back and says, I've wanted all this power, but what do I do with it? And says, aha, I know some guys in Chicago who can give me an economic plan. After all, I need to survive. Are you telling me that's a dumb person?
I think you are flipping it. This is the chicken and egg story. Pinochet did not come before the plan. The plan came after Pinochet. Or is it the other way around?
No, you see.
The plan to take over Chile existed, predated Pinochet. Pinochet was a means to an end. He was an instrument. What in politics it's called a stooge. He was a stooge of the Americans.
Let me tell you. By the time, even during Allende's time, they used to have universities sponsored by the Catholics.
Yes.
And these guys had an exchange program with the Chicago School of Economics, right? So they were sharing economic thought. They were intellectuals already.
But we know this from previous discussions on this table, that is part of America's strategy, particularly in Latin America.
Absolutely.
That they did exchange programs with universities in order to propagate their liberal thinking.
I think Junie doesn't like Pinochet.
Just like I don't.
That's not what it is.
Today we had a double headline win from The Standard and the Daily Nation, and we had a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we are also on your TV screens on GoTV and StarTimes and Pan Free to Air. See you tomorrow.
Yes.